Personally, I'm not a huge football fan, but I've seen enough games to notice when a TV channel broadcasts a game, they use at least two sets of cameras, each with a completely different view of the game. One set of cameras shows us the zoomed out view, the other set shows us the zoomed in view. Without one view or the other, the game would be difficult to follow. It doesn't matter if you're imagining an American football game or the kind of football where they actually use their feet. The zoomed out cameras give us the big picture aerial view of the game. They show us the whole field at once, or a big portion of it. From the zoomed out view, we can see where on the field the teams or players are, how far they are from the touchdown or from the goal, what formation they're playing in, who's open and who's not. Then the zoomed in cameras give us the up close in their faces detailed view. With the zoomed in view, we can follow the ball basically. Whichever player has the ball, the zoomed in cameras follow that player, or they show us the players around the ball, or when two players interact in a meaningful way. Most of the stuff they show us on the instant replays, whether a player's foot was over some line or not, whether the penalty call was a good one, without the zoomed in shots, we wouldn't see any of that. And without the zoomed out shots, first we'd probably get dizzy from being zoomed in all the time, but besides that, we'd have no idea where on the field the teams are, what formation they're playing in, what the play was, or what it should have been. When the commentators are analyzing a play with their arrows and circles and X's, they usually use the zoomed out view. The only way to truly follow a football game is with both views together. That's one reason why some people prefer to watch the games from home rather than in person, because it's easier to follow from home, because we have both views at home. Do you know why I'm talking about this? It has nothing to do with football. It has everything to do with the two views. To truly understand all but the simplest sentences in English or Spanish, we have to look at them from at least two different perspectives. Want to guess what they are? The zoomed out view and the zoomed in view. Language is like football. In this video and in this 8-part series of videos, we're talking about the 6 parts of speech. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, that stuff, those are the parts of speech. But in reality, the parts of speech don't work like most of us think they do. They don't work like I thought they did. I mean, they do, but also they don't. Two views, remember? Language is like football, and if sentences are the plays, then the words in the sentences are the players. The words work together in different ways to form phrases, clauses, then sentences. And to truly follow the conversation, to truly understand what the parts of speech are and what they do, we have to zoom out on the sentences, clauses, and phrases, and zoom in on the words. Language is like football. So, are you ready for some football? Hola, soy Jordan, and this is a Spanish Quickie. Fast, easy Spanish lessons and English lessons from somebody who speaks your language. Like I said, there are 6 parts of speech. I know that some people say there are 9 parts of speech, some people say 8, and some say 7. I've said all those myself. But now I see there are 6 parts of speech. There are nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. And the point of this 8-part series of videos is to show you exactly why I say that, to help you see what I see. Because these days, when I look at each of the 6 parts of speech, I see something different than what I saw from most of the last 20 years. I started learning Spanish on my own about 20 years ago. That's why, starting with the next video, there's a video dedicated to each of the 6 parts of speech. I want to help you see what I see. One thing I see is, out of the 6 parts of speech, 2 of them stand out: nouns and verbs. This world of ours is just a bunch of nouns doing a bunch of verbs to a bunch of nouns. Nouns are words that represent things, and verbs are words that represent actions. Nouns and verbs tell us who or what does what to who or what. Nouns do verbs to nouns. Then, in our sentences, all the other parts of speech are just there to tell us more about the nouns and verbs. And in reality, all the other parts of speech are just there to tell us more about who or what does what to who or what. For example, Jimmy buys chicken. If we made a simple silent movie for this sentence, the movie would show us a noun, Jimmy, doing a verb, buys, to a noun, chicken. But then, if we attach an adjective to the second noun, chicken, so Jimmy buys good chicken, the simple silent movie would be the same. It would still show us the same noun, Jimmy, doing the same verb, buys, to the same noun, chicken. The only difference is, now we know more about the chicken that Jimmy buys. It's not just chicken, it's good chicken. Do you feel how good chicken, even though it's 2 words, still represents one noun in reality? This is a great example to show you what I meant with the whole zoomed out, zoomed in thing. Jimmy buys chicken chicken. This is as simple as it comes. This is a noun doing a verb to a noun. When we're zoomed out, when we're zoomed in, it doesn't matter. But then, Jimmy buys good chicken. To truly understand what's going on with this sentence, we have to look at it from two different views. When we're zoomed out, when we're looking at the whole sentence, this is still just a noun, Jimmy, doing a verb, buys, to a noun, good chicken. The words good and chicken are working together here as a phrase that's serving as a noun. I define a phrase as any group of words that work together. Good and chicken are two words working together here as a noun, so good chicken is a phrase serving as a noun. When we're zoomed out, this is a noun, Jimmy, doing a verb, buys, to a noun, good chicken. Of course, when we zoom in on the phrase that's serving as the second noun, good chicken, we see immediately this phrase is made of an adjective, good, plus a noun, chicken. That's it. To truly see how all but the simplest sentences work, we have to look at them from at least two different views. In this case, when we're zoomed out, the word good is basically a noun. It's part of a phrase that's serving as a noun. But when we're zoomed in, the word good is clearly an adjective that's telling us more about the noun chicken. Another example, the guy from Florida buys chicken. The guy from Florida buys chicken. Okay, I see what's going on. This is still a noun, the guy from Florida, doing a verb, buys, to a noun, chicken. The guy from Florida is one big phrase serving as a noun. Do you feel that? The simple silent movie for the sentence, the guy from Florida buys chicken, could be exactly the same as the movies for Jimmy buys chicken and Jimmy buys good chicken. As long as Jimmy is a male human being, all three movies would show us a guy buying chicken, a noun doing a verb to a noun. Of course, when we zoom in on that phrase that's serving as the first noun, the guy from Florida, we see immediately it's made of an article, the, which is a specific type of adjective, plus a noun, guy, plus a preposition, from, plus a noun, Florida. And that's it. To truly see what's going on in this sentence, we have to look at it from two different views. When we're zoomed out, the words the and from are nouns basically. They're part of a phrase that's serving as a noun. But when we're zoomed in, the word the is an article, which is a specific type of adjective, and the word from is a preposition. Don't worry about the nomenclature right now. Don't worry if you didn't know that the word the is an article, or that articles are adjectives, or that the word from is a preposition. We'll go over all that stuff slowly and methodically throughout this series in the individual videos for each of the 6 parts of speech. And I'm obviously showing you simple examples right now to show you how this works, so when we get to the longer, more complicated sentences, you'll already know what's going on. Have you ever heard me say words don't mean words? I say that a lot because it comes up a lot. That's one of the most important ideas to remember when learning a language. When I say words don't mean words, I mean a bunch of different things, but right now I want to talk about one of them. Jimmy buys chicken often. Jimmy buys chicken frequently. When these sentences are said in the same situation, they mean exactly the same thing. The words often and frequently mean the same thing. They represent the same idea. If we're watching a real movie in English and one of the characters says Jimmy buys chicken often, the English subtitles might say Jimmy buys chicken frequently. They're both in English, but the sound in the subtitles don't match. That happens all the time in English and in Spanish. The character in a movie will say something one way in Spanish, and the Spanish subtitles will say the same thing a different way. The point is, when we're told that two sentences mean the same thing, whether it's two sentences in the same language or two sentences in different languages, but they don't match each other word for word, this is usually the reason. Because words don't mean words. Words represent ideas, and there's almost always another way to express the same idea, by using different words or by changing the structure of the sentence, either a little or a lot. Jimmy buys chicken daily. Jimmy buys chicken every day. When these sentences are said in the same situation, they mean exactly the same thing. The word daily and the phrase every day mean the same thing. But when daily is considered frequently, and I'd say that buying chicken daily qualifies as buying chicken frequently, all 4 of these sentences basically mean the same thing and can be used interchangeably. Jimmy buys chicken often. Jimmy buys chicken frequently. Jimmy buys chicken daily. Jimmy buys chicken every day. There could be a difference between often, frequently, and daily, every day, but not necessarily. It depends on the context. The one exception I can think of to words don't mean words is nomenclature. With nomenclature, we give specific set definitions to certain words in order to make complicated topics easier to talk about or easier to teach and learn. Like I did a few minutes ago with the word phrase. I defined a phrase as any group of words working together. When we use nomenclature, we're basically saying, for the sake of this conversation, let's agree that a phrase is any group of words working together. You'll see lots of examples of words don't mean words in the upcoming videos, but right now I want to talk about something else, something just as important. Words are just words. That might sound similar to words don't mean words, but this is a different idea. Words aren't nouns, verbs, or adjectives. Words are just words. Then, depending depending on what they do in a particular sentence and how we're looking at that sentence, words and phrases can serve as nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. The 6 parts of speech are the 6 roles that words and phrases serve in our phrases and sentences. A single word all alone can serve as one of the parts of speech. A bunch of words working together, a phrase, can serve as one of the parts of speech. And the same word or phrase can serve different roles. They can serve as different parts of speech in the same sentence depending on how we look at the sentence. Words are just words. Words aren't nouns, verbs, or the other parts of speech. Words and phrases serve as the 6 parts of speech in our phrases and sentences. Even without getting into the whole zoomed out, zoomed in thing though, words are still just words. Like the word run, for example. Jimmy and Kimmy run every day. In this sentence, looking at the words individually, the word run is a verb because the word run represents an action. But then Jimmy and Kimmy go for a run every day. Again, looking at the words individually, the word run is a noun now because in this sentence, the word run represents a thing. This is still a simple example to get my point across, but when you're done watching all the videos in this series and the next series, you'll realize why this is so important. Like with verbs, most of the words we think are verbs aren't really verbs. They don't represent actions. You'll see what I mean. Did you watch the previous video I made, the Spanish dude versus the Spanish authority? If not, the link is below this video or in the first comment, as are the links to anything else I mentioned in this video. They're below this video or in the first comment. In the Spanish dude versus the Spanish authority, I explained why I'm making these videos. This is an introduction to my world, which I call the real world, because the way that just about every Spanish book, course, teacher, and website describes what's happening in the sentences and the nomenclature they use to explain it is inconsistent, convoluted, and either delusional or dishonest. I don't know if they actually believe what they tell us or not. I know them are fighting words, but I chose my words carefully and I mean them quite literally. I'm not going to keep dwelling on that aspect in these videos though. I think I made my point in the Spanish dude versus the Spanish authority. I only bring it up now to explain why a different way of looking at things is required. I can't tell you how many people ask me about sentence construction. You know those times when we've got all the vocab and individual grammar patterns down, but still can't put it together in a sentence? Or we don't understand how they put it together in a sentence? We think we have a sentence construction problem, and we do, but it's primarily a sentence construction problem in English, or with language in general. We don't even understand how English works. I didn't know what the infinitive and conjugation was, or what transitive and intransitive meant, even when, I'll assume, they taught it to me originally in English. Yet, pretty much every Spanish book, course, teacher, and website, including the ones geared to adults, teach Spanish from the get-go as if we do know what that stuff means. It's crazy. Talk about a lack of intellectual empathy. That's why I'm making this series of videos on the 6 parts of speech, and the next series on how the 6 parts of speech work together to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. That's why a different world is necessary, why a whole different way of looking at things is necessary. And that's why all these videos are going to be completely in English. You won't need to know any Spanish to understand them. But even though all these videos are in English, they're designed specifically for Spanish learners. The whole point of showing you how English works is to make it easier to show you later how Spanish works. Because, spoiler alert, Spanish works just like English does. Yes, they sometimes put their adjectives after their nouns, and we rarely do, if ever, but for the most part, sentences are constructed in Spanish exactly as they are in English. And the way they're constructed is, a noun does a verb to a noun. That's what a clause is, actually. In reality, a clause is when a noun does a verb to a noun. A clause can be more than that, but in reality, every clause is at least that, and it's always at least that. That's the framework that every clause adheres to in reality. A noun does a verb to a noun. Then our sentences can contain 1 clause, 2 clauses, they can contain unlimited clauses. No matter what though, each clause in a sentence represents a noun doing a verb to a noun in reality. Going the other way, every action in reality is represented by a clause in the sentence, with one exception, which we'll talk about in a video later in this series about within clause conjunctions. So when we encounter a confusing sentence and want to count the clauses, which when we're confused we do, we need to count the verbs. Each verb signifies a separate clause, which is always a noun doing a verb to a noun in reality, at least. I know what I'm saying is different than what we were taught, and different to how we're used to looking at clauses and sentences. I know this doesn't match what the Spanish authority tells us, but keep in mind what I said earlier. The way the Spanish authority explains what's happening in the sentences and the nomenclature they use is inconsistent, convoluted, and delusional or dishonest. It simply doesn't match reality. It doesn't match how we see sentences being used in real life. I'm saying, despite what the Spanish authority says, despite what the words in our sentences say even, in reality, every clause in our sentences adheres to this same framework. A noun does a verb to a noun. Everything else in the sentence is just there to tell us more about the noun, the verb, and the noun. No worries if you don't have any clue what I'm talking about right now. That's what this 8-part series of videos is for, and the next series. These videos are step-by-step, piece-by-piece, consistent and logical explanations and demonstrations of how English really works, and thus how Spanish really works. I'm putting the big picture on your radar right now so you have some context. Then throughout this series and the next, you'll see exactly what I mean. And at the end, when all the videos have been published, I'll ask you to send me any questions you have. I'll use your questions to make a big Q&A video to clean everything up and fill in any holes that might remain. But showing you the mechanics of how sentences really work isn't the only goal of these videos. An additional goal is to help you get used to how I describe everything, to help you become familiar with the nomenclature I use and the nomenclature I don't use. Because going forward, this is how I'm going to explain things in all my Spanish videos. This is the nomenclature I'm going to use. And when somebody asks me a question about a confusing sentence or why, basically anything, the stuff I'm showing you in these videos is going to be the foundation of my answers. The lingo I use in these videos is the lingo I'm going to use in my answers. Because this is what's really going on. Two views, zoomed out, zoomed in. Words don't mean words. Words are just words. This is reality. Don't get me wrong, when what the Spanish authority tells us makes sense, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. When their nomenclature works, or at least doesn't hurt us, I use the same nomenclature they use. It's just when needed or helpful, I make up my own nomenclature. And the terms that confuse us or have no value, like transitive and intransitive, go on the banned nomenclature list. Along with these videos, I'll be updating the Spanish battle plans and creating two new downloadables, the Spanish Dude Glossary and the banned nomenclature list. I think both those names are sufficiently self-explanatory. Links to all that stuff are below this video or in the first comment. And we'll stop there. That should be enough context for you to understand and get the most out of the rest of this series of videos. Then this series about the 6 parts of speech is basically context for the next series about how the 6 parts of speech work together to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. Together, the two series are like a little mini course, Logical English, or How English Works. In this free mini course is basically context for my premium course, Logical Spanish, or How Spanish Works. Logical Spanish is my most comprehensive Spanish course yet. If you're looking for a track to run on, do this, then that, Logical Spanish is for you. Just like this mini course on English gives you a step-by-step, piece-by-piece, consistent and logical explanation of how English really works, Logical Spanish does the same, but for Spanish. Instead of just one video on nouns though, and one video on verbs, Logical Spanish has an entire module on nouns. We cover singular plural, masculine feminine, all that stuff. And there are lots of modules on verbs. We have a lot more ground to cover in Spanish than we do in English. If you want to learn Spanish from the Spanish Dude, Logical Spanish is how to do that. Get all the details, including an up-to-date course syllabus at SpanishDude.com/logical. If you're watching this on YouTube right now and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. But to be honest, the only way to make sure you're always notified when I post a new video is to sign up for the Spanish Dude newsletter at SpanishDude.com/newsletter. You can't trust YouTube or Facebook to notify you every time. Plus, subscribers to the Spanish Dude newsletter get discounts and special videos that non-subscribers don't get. Sign up now at SpanishDude.com/newsletter. Again, all these links are below this video or in the first comment. If you've been picking up what I've been laying down in this video, you'll really enjoy the rest of the videos in this free English mini course, and you'll get a lot out of them too. Once you see what I see, you'll never be able to look at words or sentences any other way. You'll be kicking yourself you didn't see it sooner. Okay, that's it for this video. Remember, zoom out, zoom in. Words don't mean words. Words are just words, and nouns do verbs to nouns. Everything else is just there to tell us how it all goes down. In the next video, we'll start from the very beginning with nouns. So, I'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Adios, amigo.